Tons of fury move in absolute silence.
A male African elephant can crush a human skull.
As easily as you crumple a sheet of paper.
And in the savannas around Lake Eyasi in Tanzania. Fewer than 1,300 people live exactly where these giants walk.
The Hadzabe, the last hunter-gatherers of East Africa.
Armed only with wooden bows and poisoned arrows that cannot even pierce the hide of an adult elephant.
Picture the scene. You wake up before dawn in a hut made of branches and dry grass with no solid walls, no doors, nothing between you and the darkness of the African savannah. There are no fences, no alarms, no firearms, not even a telephone to call for help. There is only the sound of the wind moving through the acacia trees, and somewhere out there, the concrete possibility that an animal the size of a bus is walking in your direction. The ground subtly trembles. Branches snap in the distance, the heavy silence that precedes something immense. This is the daily reality of the Hadzabe. The territory they call home is wedged between Lake Turkana and the Laikipia Plateau in northern Kenya. A region of golden savannas that stretch as far as the eye can see. Forests of thorny acacias whose twisted branches look like hands clawing at the sky. And ancient baobabs with trunks that can reach 25 meters in circumference. These monumental trees store up to 120,000 liters of water in their spongy tissues, surviving droughts that would kill any other vegetation. The Hadzabe have known them for generations. They know which ones bear the best fruit, which ones shelter beehives, which ones serve as a refuge when a predator approaches. 50 kilometers away lies Kubi Fora. The name comes from a term in the Gabra language for the commiphora plant that grows abundantly in the region. But the world knows this place for another reason. It is there in that 48-kilometer-long, 90-meter-deep basin that archaeologists found the oldest fossils of our human ancestors. Remains of Homo habilis, dated to nearly 2 million years ago. Fragments of Paranthropus boisei, nicknamed Nutcracker Man for its massive jaw, discovered in 1959 by teams led by the Leakey family after 3 decades of tireless excavation. Chipped stone tools of the Oldowan culture that represent the first steps of human technology. Thousands of artifacts that tell the story of how we became who we are. 40 kilometers from Kubi Fora, at the Kanapoi Flats site, researchers found something even more extraordinary. Fossilized footprints preserved in volcanic ash from 3,600,000 years ago. 77 footprints distributed along a 27-meter track, left by at least 3 individuals of Australopithecus afarensis, walking erect on 2 legs. The definitive proof that our ancestors were already bipedal millions of years before they developed large brains or sophisticated tools. Those footprints show a confident stride, a walk not so different from our own. The Hadzabe are the living heirs of this lineage. Genetically, they represent one of the oldest branches of the human family tree. DNA studies have revealed that the Hadzabe lineage diverged from the rest of humanity approximately 50,000 years ago, before the great migrations that populated Europe, Asia, and the Americas. This does not mean they are primitive or less evolved. It means they have maintained genetic and cultural continuity in a specific region for an extraordinarily long period, while other groups spread across the planet. Their DNA bears no close relationship to any other known people. The language they speak, Hadzabe, is equally unique. Linguists classify it as a language isolate, a language with no demonstrable connection to any other existing language family in the world. Hadzabe is punctuated by click sounds produced with the tongue against different parts of the mouth, dental, alveolar, lateral, and palatal clicks that create a sonic repertoire that speakers of English, Portuguese, or any European language find almost impossible to reproduce. The clicks bear a superficial resemblance to the Khoisan, languages of southern Africa, but analyses have proven the similarity is only apparent. The Hadzabe developed their form of communication completely independently. And for 10,000 years, they have resisted all attempts to change them. The British colonial government tried to settle them in 1927. The plan was simple: permanent villages, agriculture, Christianity. Officials built houses, marked out plots of land, brought seeds and tools. The Hadzabe politely accepted, occupied the houses, and ate the provisions supplied. When the food ran out, they disappeared into the savannah. The officials were perplexed. They searched, found some groups, and brought them back. They provided more food. The Hadzabe stayed until it was gone. They disappeared again. They tried again in 1939. Same result. The independent Kenyan government inherited the problem. In 1965, they decided to use force. Hadzabe families were rounded up under armed escort and transported to a specially built permanent village. Missionaries erected a school and a hospital. It seemed like a model humanitarian project. Then came the epidemic. Confined in enclosed spaces for the first time in their lives, the Hadzabe had no immunity to common respiratory diseases. Infections that would be a minor inconvenience for urban populations became death sentences. Measles spread like fire through dry grass. Children were the most affected. The records speak of many deaths. The survivors did not wait for permission. They abandoned the village en masse and returned to the savannah, back to the only way of life they knew, back to the dangers they understood, back to the elephants. Consider the hunter's situation. Every day, before the first ray of sun tints the horizon orange, groups of Hadzabe men set out to find food. There is no guarantee of success. There is no supermarket as a backup plan. There is no food reserved for the bad days. Each morning starts from zero, with the same existential urgency our ancestors felt 100,000 years ago. The hunters carry bows made of flexible wood, harvested from specific trees that only they know. The wood needs the right combination of stiffness and elasticity. Too stiff and the bow breaks, too flexible, and it doesn't develop enough power. Scientific tests conducted on Hadzabe bows measured an average draw weight of 311 newtons, equivalent to approximately 70% of the archer's body weight. This means a 60-kilogram man pulls his bow with a force of over 40 kilograms. The strings were traditionally made from animal sinew, but today many use nylon strands obtained through trade with neighboring tribes. It is one of the few concessions to modernity. Nylon is more durable and resistant to moisture. The arrows are works of artisanal precision, shafts of Congoroko wood, chosen for its combination of lightness and strength. Guinea fowl feathers carefully attached for flight stabilization, 3 feathers arranged at precise angles that make the arrow spin in the air. The tips vary according to use. For birds and small mammals, sharpened wooden points. For larger prey, cold-forged metal tips made from old. Nails. The Hadzabe obtain these tips through trade with the Datoga tribe, skilled blacksmiths. In return, they provide honey and meat, but the real weapon lies in the poisoned arrows. The poison is primarily extracted from the desert rose, known scientifically as Adenium obesum, and called panju by the Hadzabe. A succulent plant of deceptively beautiful appearance with vibrant pink flowers and a bulbous trunk. All parts contain cardiac glycosides, chemical compounds that interfere with the electrical functioning of the heart. To extract the poison, they cut the trunk and collect the spongy pulp saturated with milky sap. This pulp is processed, concentrated, and applied as a paste to the arrow shafts just below the metal tip. When the arrow penetrates the prey, the poison enters the bloodstream. The first symptoms are excessive salivation and vomiting. Then comes lethargy, weakness, and difficulty with coordination. Finally, the heart goes into arrhythmia and stops. The time varies depending on the size of the animal. A dik-dik, a small antelope of 40 centimeters, may succumb in less than an hour. An adult baboon can take several hours. A giraffe might resist for an entire day before collapsing, But an elephant is another story entirely. An African savanna elephant can weigh between 5,000 and 6,800 kilograms. The largest recorded males have exceeded 10 tons. Their skin is up to 3 centimeters thick in areas like the back and flanks, thicker than many bulletproof vests. A Hadzabe arrow simply cannot penetrate deep enough to deposit poison into the bloodstream. And even if it could, the math doesn't add up. The amount of cardiac glycosides needed to affect a 6-ton animal would be dozens of times greater than what fits on an arrow. The time of action would be measured in days, not hours. A wounded and enraged elephant would have more than enough time to destroy an entire village before feeling any effect. Its trunk, composed of more than 40,000 individual muscles, can lift objects of up to 270 kilograms and hurl them with devastating force. Its tusks function as natural spears capable of piercing metal. Its feet can turn a human body into an unrecognizable mass with a single stomp. The Hadzabe know all of this. Therefore, they do not hunt elephants. This decision is not weakness or cowardice. It is wisdom distilled over hundreds of generations. At some point in the distant past, there were probably Hadzabe who tried. There were probably deaths. There were probably families torn apart in seconds of overwhelming violence. These events are not recorded in any book, but they are encoded in the cultural behavior of the people. They learned that there are limits to what a bow and arrow can face. The African elephant is beyond that limit, so they developed a different strategy: calculated avoidance. Hadzabe hunters are absolute masters at reading the environment. Decades of anthropological research have documented their tracking skills with almost reverential admiration. They can identify animal tracks with a precision that seems supernatural. Not just the species, but the approximate size of the individual, the direction of movement, the speed, and how long ago the animal was there. They can distinguish between the tracks of an adult male and a female, between a healthy and an injured animal, between one that is grazing peacefully and one that is fleeing from something. When they find elephant tracks, the response is automatic and silent. There is no discussion, no debate. The hunters simply change their route. They choose another path, another direction. The savanna is large. There is other prey. No antelope is worth the risk of crossing the path of a 6-ton giant with an unpredictable temperament. This ability has been measured and quantified by scientists. Researchers have accompanied Hadzabe hunters on real expeditions and documented their capacity to follow wounded animals for hours. The technique involves interpreting subtle signs that would go unnoticed by untrained eyes. Changes in the pattern of the tracks indicating that the poison is taking effect. The trail becoming drunk, irregular footprints closer together with marks of stumbling, branches broken at strange heights. The same ability that allows them to follow prey allows them to avoid a predator. But avoidance has geographical limits. The Hadzabe territory is shrinking dramatically. In 1970, they occupied a vast area around Lake Turkana, with almost unlimited freedom of movement in all directions. They could follow the rains, follow the prey, follow the seasons in annual cycles unchanged for millennia. Today, after decades of encroachment by farmers, pastoralists, mining operations, and commercial interests, they have lost approximately 90% of their ancestral lands. In 2011, after years of advocacy by support organizations, the Kenyan government granted formal land titles to a Hadzabe community. About 700 people received legal rights to over 20,000 hectares. It was a historic moment, the first time Kenya recognized the territorial rights of a minority hunter-gatherer tribe. But 20,000 hectares for a nomadic people is like a small apartment for a large family. The Hadzabe need to move constantly. When they stay too long in one area, the resources become depleted. Prey becomes scarce and wary. Edible tubers are all dug up. The land needs time to recover. The traditional solution is simple. The group moves to another area. This system worked for 10,000 years. Now, with reduced territories, the cycles are compressed. Encounters with elephants become more frequent and more dangerous. The elephants are also being squeezed. Migration corridors that historically connected Amboseli National Park to Lake Nakuru are being fragmented by human settlements and agricultural expansion. Elephants that once could move freely across hundreds of kilometers now encounter barriers. Fences, roads, plantations, villages. A single adult elephant consumes approximately 150 kilograms of vegetation per day. A family of 10 needs over a ton daily. To sustain this consumption without devastating any specific area, elephants evolved as long-distance migrants. When they are forced to remain in the restricted territories, they exhaust the local vegetation. And when a hungry elephant finds a cornfield in the path of its traditional route, it does not understand concepts like private property. It simply eats. A family of elephants can devastate months of agricultural work in a single night. For small farmers who depend on that harvest to feed their families, the loss is catastrophic. It is not just a financial loss, it is potential hunger, children out of school, a spiral of poverty. The human response is predictable. Farmers try to protect their crops. Some build fences of thorny branches that elephants walk through without slowing down. Some light fires and make noise during the night. Some use more creative methods, like beehive fences. Bees make elephants nervous. In Kenya, some communities have developed chili bombs, condoms filled with chili powder thrown at the invaders. Sometimes nothing works. And when frustration boils over, people kill elephants with spears, with poison, occasionally with illegal firearms. Wildlife authorities in Kenya report culling between 50 and 120 problem elephants per year. The conflict kills on both sides. Globally, elephants are responsible for 400 to 500 human deaths per year. In India, more than 400 people die annually. In Kenya, more than 200 people lost their lives between 2010 and 2017. Consider what it means to face this threat without modern technology. An elephant can accelerate from a standstill to 40 kilometers per hour in seconds, faster than Usain Bolt in his world record. Its 6-ton mass in motion represents devastating energy, equivalent to being hit by a car at high speed, except it can change direction and has sharp tusks. The trunk can break human ribs with a sideways blow. It can throw a person meters away. The tusks, in large males, weigh more than 45 kilograms each and measure over 2 meters. The feet exert enough pressure to flatten practically anything. The Hadzabe have developed survival protocols passed down through generations. Never approach a female with a calf. Elephant mothers are fiercely protective. Any presence within 50 meters of a calf can be interpreted as a threat. The response is an instant full charge. Never block the path to water. In the dry season, elephants become irritable. An adult needs over 200 liters a day. Any obstacle will be removed. Never run in a straight line. Elephants are fast on open ground but have difficulty with sudden changes of direction. Run in a zigzag. If possible, climb a tree. Elephants don't climb. The Hadzabe are experienced climbers. They scale baobabs to harvest honey. If there is no tree, stand absolutely still. Elephants have poor eyesight. A stationary human can sometimes go unnoticed. It works, most of the time. Today, the Hadzabe live off smaller, safer prey. Dik-diks, the smallest African antelopes, which barely reach 40 centimeters in height. Wild pigs and warthogs. Baboons, whose skins the men use as traditional garments. Guinea fowl, which are abundant in the region. White-tailed. Mongooses, hyraxes. Occasionally larger antelopes like impalas or elands. The meat is always shared according to strict egalitarian rules. The hunter who kills the animal has no special privilege. The meat belongs to the group, not the individual. Nothing is wasted. Bones are broken to extract marrow. Hides are turned into bags and clothing. Sinews become bowstrings. The women focus on gathering. They go out with digging sticks to unearth tubers and roots that grow at depths bare hands cannot reach. They know dozens of edible species. They know which are ripe, which are poisonous, when raw, but edible after. Cooking. They collect baobab fruit, rich in vitamin C, berries of various species, seeds, nuts, edible leaves, and above all, honey. Honey is sacred to the Hadzabe. They maintain an extraordinary symbiotic relationship with the honey guide bird. When it finds a beehive, The bird emits a characteristic call that the Hadzabe recognize instantly. The hunters respond with specific whistles. The bird then begins to guide them, flying from tree to tree, stopping on visible branches to wait for the humans to catch up. It can take 20 minutes or an hour, but eventually they reach the hive. A hunter climbs the tree carrying a smoldering branch. The smoke disorients the bees. The honeycomb is removed by hand. Part of it is consumed immediately. A portion is left for the bird, payment for its service. This partnership may have thousands of years of history. The resulting diet is extraordinarily healthy. Researchers from Duke University discovered the exercise paradox. Despite being much more active than sedentary people, the daily caloric expenditure of the Hadzabe is practically the same as that of office workers. This has revolutionized the understanding of human metabolism. The Hadzabe also have a unique gut microbiome with a much greater bacterial diversity than Western populations. This diversity is associated with better metabolic health and a lower incidence of inflammatory diseases. Hadzabe adults who survive childhood often live to be 70 or 80 in excellent health. Obesity is non-existent. Type 2 diabetes does not occur. Heart disease is rare. Hypertension is rare. Hadzabe oral tradition records no major famine in their history. The Hadzabe are radically egalitarian. There is no chief, leader, or formal hierarchy. Decisions are made by consensus. Conflicts are resolved in the simplest way. If you don't get along with someone, you leave and join another group. Men and women participate equally in discussions. The Kenyan government recognizes this lifestyle with a tax exemption, but the modern world is closing in. Tourists arrive in jeeps, paying fees to observe morning hunts. Some operators offer authentic experiences that are choreographed performances. The Hadzabe sell bows, arrows, and necklaces as souvenirs. Children who once would have learned to track animals now sometimes attend schools. Many drop out and return to the bush, unable to adapt to a world of walls and schedules. The youth are torn between two worlds, and the elephants are still there, walking the same routes their ancestors used when the first Homo habilis were chipping stones at Kubifora, drinking at the same waterholes where Australopithecines stooped 3 million years ago, carrying in their genes the memory of a time when the entire savanna was theirs. The largest males, called super tuskers, for having tusks of more than 45 kilograms each, are being systematically eliminated. Between 2023 and 2024, trophy hunters killed at least 5 in the borderlands. Their bodies were burned to prevent identification. One of them was Gilgil, a 35-year-old male whom researchers had known since birth. He was approaching his years of greatest reproductive potential. Perhaps 50 super tuskers remain in all of Africa. The numbers don't lie. In 1970, there were 1,300,000 African elephants. Today, fewer than 450,000 remain. Central Africa lost 64% of its elephants in a recent decade. The Hadzabe are also diminishing. Of the territories they occupied 50 years ago, they have lost 90%. Fewer than 400 still live exclusively as hunter-gatherers. 2 species in decline, both pressured by the advance of a world that has no patience for those who live slowly, both guarding secrets that modern humanity has forgotten. When the last Hadzabe accepts a job in the city, when the last great tusked elephant falls under the sights of a trophy hunter, something will be lost forever. Not just a culture or a species, but the very memory of who we were. The living proof that it is possible to exist in another way. Picture the scene. You wake up before dawn in a hut made of branches and dry grass with no solid walls, no doors, nothing between you and the darkness of the African savanna. There are no fences, no alarms, no firearms, not even a telephone to call for help. There is only the sound of the wind moving through the acacia trees, and somewhere out there, the concrete possibility that an animal the size of a bus is walking in your direction. The ground subtly trembles. Branches snap in the distance, the heavy silence that precedes something immense. This is the daily reality of the Hadzabe. The territory they call home is wedged between Lake Turkana and the Laikipia Plateau in northern Kenya. A region of golden savannas that stretch as far as the eye can see. forests of thorny acacias whose twisted branches look like hands clawing at the sky, and ancient baobabs with trunks that can reach 25 meters in circumference. These monumental trees store up to 120,000 liters of water in their spongy tissues, surviving droughts that would kill any other vegetation. The Hadzabe have known them for generations. They know which ones bear the best fruit, which ones shelter beehives, which ones serve as a refuge when a predator approaches. 50 kilometers away lies Kubi Fora. The name comes from a term in the Gabra language for the commiphora plant that grows abundantly in the region. But the world knows this place for another reason. It is there in that 48-kilometer-long, 90-meter-deep basin that archaeologists found the oldest fossils of our human ancestors. Remains of Homo habilis, dated to nearly 2 million years ago. Fragments of Paranthropus boisei, nicknamed Nutcracker Man for its massive jaw, discovered in 1959 by teams led by the Leakey family after 3 decades of tireless excavation. Chipped stone tools of the Oldowan culture that represent the first steps of human technology. Thousands of artifacts that tell the story of how we became who we are. 40 kilometers from Kubi Fora, at the Kanapoi Flats site, researchers found something even more extraordinary. Fossilized footprints preserved in volcanic ash from 3,600,000 years ago. 77 footprints distributed along a 27-meter track, left by at least 3 individuals of Australopithecus afarensis, walking erect on 2 legs. The definitive proof that our ancestors were already bipedal millions of years before they developed large brains or sophisticated tools. Those footprints show a confident stride, a walk not so different from our own. The Hadzabe are the living heirs of this lineage. Genetically, they represent one of the oldest branches of the human family tree. DNA studies have revealed that the Hadzabe lineage diverged from the rest of humanity approximately 50,000 years ago, before the Great Migration.